we left off, we were looking at Hellenistic philosophy, which I think for our purposes, I'm done with. So just to review, we looked at four big schools: the Cynics, or Cynicism, the Epicureans, the Skeptics, and the Stoics. And remember, while all this is going on, we still have the Platonists. They're still a thing. Followers of Plato, the forms and all that. And the Aristotelians. In the period of Hellenization, where post-Alexander, Greek thought and ideas are spreading, these are sort of the packages going around. There are people talking about cynicism in the mountains of Afghanistan because Greek culture had been brought there. And talking about Stoicism in Egypt, or talking about Epicureanism in Italy, or Italia, I should say, and so on. And in the Roman Empire, a lot of this stuff continues. The Roman Empire, at its greatest extent under Emperor Trajan, still makes its way relatively far to the east, like to parts of like Iran today, but nowhere near as far as the Greek world did. But it goes farther west too, into the Iberian Peninsula, like Spain and Portugal today. So there's these six schools. And again, if I could summarize them, if I could give them each like a catchphrase, and really all of them see themselves as we're successors to what Socrates was doing. Kind of like Alexander's generals. I'm the successor to Alexander. Ptolemy in Egypt, Seleucus and so on. We're the real Socrates. So, forms. Okay, all that stuff about predication and potentiality and actuality, that would be Aristotle. Cynics. Be like a dog. It's society and civilization that's corrupting us. Let's go back to nature. Epicureans, no. Live a life of pleasure. The best pleasures. Not just sensuousness, the best pleasures, the good stuff. Enjoy finer things. Skeptics. Remember, skepticism is not merely the, I don't believe anything. It's the don't commit yourself to a big picture position. Know as much as you can about it. Don't dismiss anything. Oh, you don't need to learn anything about that. Learn as much as you can, but keep it at a distance, epoche. All right, and be all right with the fact that you don't know everything. And then Stoics, if I could summarize that view, live your life in such a way that you're okay with whatever happens. Even if something bad happens, just roll with the punches. That's Stoicism. Okay, don't seek, Epictetus said, don't seek to have events happen to you the way you want them to, but seek to have events happen the way that they do happen, and you won't be disappointed. If you're constantly doing, come on, let this happen, please, oh man, because you're hoping for something. Rather than what happens, you're hoping for one particular result. Just let life happen. Realize that everything is finite in the world. What does that mean? If you permit me a colloquialism here, everything's going to run out of gas. Everything's going to die. Anything that is now, one day, all the tables and chairs in this room will be gone. This building, millennia from now, will be in ruins. For whatever reason. Or it won't be here. Heat death of the sun in billions of years. It won't be here. We won't be here. The sun's going to eventually burn out. We won't be here to see it. Why? Because we'll be long dead. Even if they do something, if you have technology in the next few decades that allows you to prolong your life, and I hope it does happen. All right, so I hope all of you get to live for centuries. I won't. Not because I'll refuse it. It's just I don't think I'm going to be there when it happens. But even so, even if something is prolonged, you're not going to live forever. So the Stoics, everything's going to pass away. Just come to terms with that. Whether it be, remember Epictetus talks about, if it's your favorite cup and it breaks, go, oh, it was a cup. Okay, he says jug. If it's a person that you love, be prepared. They're going to die. Maybe not today, but someday. Just be prepared. Things are going to die. Okay. Those are the main Hellenistic schools in competition to Plato and Aristotle. There's one school, however, one additional one that I want to introduce before we make a very different kind of transition. So we're going to talk about the philosophy of Plotinus. Plotinus's philosophy is called, or his system is called, by historians and philosophers, he wouldn't have called it this, Neoplatonism. So the prefix, neo, what does neo mean? New. So this is the new Platonism. Now again, if we could go back in time and talk to Plotinus and said, hey, what's your philosophy? He would go, I'm a Platonist. But he's doing something different. He doesn't think he's doing something different. He thinks, I'm doing exactly what Plato said to do. So Plotinus, and notice how far removed we are here. Notice the numbers are going up now. Well, we've reached the common era, or it's traditionally called the Anno Domini, the year of our Lord. So this is we're talking. Remember, Socrates died 399 BC. So now we're talking almost 4 or 5 centuries later. And that's like us looking back at, say, Francis Bacon. Okay, a long time later. Christianity is already around in a thing in the empire. It's not legal yet, Edict of Milan, nor is it the religion of the empire yet, Edict of Thessalonica, in the 4th century in the Roman Empire. So what's Plotinus all about? And like I said, I said this all with a warning. If you asked him, he would say he's a Platonist. So what was Plato all about? Forms. And reality down here is an imperfect copy. If I could summarize it very, very briefly. That's the framework. And then the way the epistemology works, how we know what we know, our souls, which beheld the forms before we were imprisoned in this body, beheld everything. And so when we have knowledge of something, it's our soul remembering or reconnecting back to the forms that we once beheld. I remember this. This is a tiger or a horse or a human. So Plotinus says, yeah, the thing is it's more complicated than that. Now, Plato kept talking about this notion of if there was one form that was the best form, it was the form of good. Goodness itself is ultimate, in a sense. Plotinus says, here's the deal. There is one thing that really is ultimate. And that is toe hen. Looks like toe. Like you got 10 of them. Toe hen. What's that? The one. The one. The one what? The one. So Plotinus says this. Now, Parmenides said something like this in pre-Socratic times. Okay, the universe there's a oneness to the universe. And Plotinus says, yeah, it's really, really one though. The one is everything, but the one is kind of like God. In fact, I mentioned earlier a lot of what the different Abrahamic systems are doing in the Middle Ages, whether that be the Jews, the Christians, or the Muslims. I said they're wrestling with Aristotle's notion of God. They're also wrestling with their own texts. Okay, whether that be the Tanakh, mainly the Torah, the Old and New Testaments, or the Quran, and the Hadith, and a bunch of other things. You're kind of wrestling with that. Okay, Aristotle said this, our scriptures say this, and also Plotinus said that. Okay, what does Plotinus about the one? Shema says to the Jews, Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. The Lord is, how many? Echad, one. In Islam, on the other hand, one of the names of God is Al-Ahad. How many gods? In fact, that word Ahad in Arabic is the same as the Echad in Hebrew. One. Really, really, really one. Allah. All right, there is only one God, the God. Okay, one. Christians, on the other hand, different take here. How many gods are there? One. Parts. Heretic. All right, so they wouldn't say parts. Christians would not say parts. They would say three. The Greeks would use the word hypostasis. The Romans will use the word personas, or persons. Okay, so 3 persons, and these are not parts. Thomas Aquinas will tell us that, but that comes easily. So there's a 1 and 3 going on. When we look more at Christianity, we'll zoom into that a little bit. But there's still one being, one substance, one God. We believe. The Nicene Creed. We believe in one God, the Father Almighty Maker, and then it gives you a bunch of Trinitarian theology. Opening line. We believe in one God. And there's a sense in the Middle Ages where they're going, okay, what Plotinus says here about the one makes a lot of sense. It doesn't help that the main text that we have of Plotinus was translated in the Middle Ages under the title, The Theology of Aristotle. It's not Aristotle, it's Plotinus. So, all right, so he talks about the one. What does he say about it? Remember how for Plato there were 2 circles? There's the world of forms and there's here. Well, Plotinus, now, and I also said about Plato, There's not one spot where he comes out and says this, right? I am able to come to that conclusion because I have the complete works of Plato in my office. And I studied him in grad school, in college. So I have the, thousands, really, literally, over 2,000 years of Platonic exegesis to be able to come to those conclusions. Plotinus didn't have quite that luxury. So Plotinus comes to the following conclusions, like he reads Plato and says, this is what Plato was saying. But he really sees himself as an exegete. What do I mean by exegete? That's a nice spicy word. Someone who reads a text and talks about what it says. So he says this. You want to know how many circles there are? I'm going to give the framework, and then I'm going to explain how it works. So what's the framework? First of all, kind of like Plato, there is a correspondence here. Like Plato had two circles, right? So what do we got? First of all, we got the one itself. There it is, highest above all. What is the one? Pure, unadulterated being. The Greeks would say ousia. Well, what's being? Well, Aristotle talked about it. Or what's being? What does it mean to be? Being itself is abstract. Okay, really, I could say, if I could say it more colloquially, being. Isness. That something is. And if you will, animals have more of an isness than plants. Plants have more of an isness than inanimate objects. We humans, traditionally speaking, have more of an isness than animals. That's a controversial claim today, but in the past, not so much. It's obvious. Like we're better than animals. Animals are better than plants. Plants are better than other living things. And we have more isness. And so there's a scale here. With being at the top. This was true for Plato as well. And non-being at the bottom. And so what does the one have? The most being. It's pure being itself. It just is. Now what's non-being? Nothing. But literally, that's what it is. Nothing. Nothingness. But nothing, what is nothing? And this is something that showed up again in Greek thought. We've already seen it before. What is nothing? Hule. Matter. The physical stuff, it's nothing. You might think, no, it looks like something if you can reach out and touch it. Not in Greek thought. Greek thought, the physical, that's the stuff that's unreal. The stuff that's extramental, that is outside of the mind and beyond and above. That stuff is real. Reality is in the ideal, like the forms of Plato. That's the real stuff. Down here, these are echoes or copies. Which we take, remember, the echoes and copies to us, intuitively, we think of them as real. And so at the top of everything is this thing called the one. Pure being itself. It's oozing with ousia. So much ousia that almost like, this is the way I like to think, it's shooting out being everywhere. Just being flowing down. However, in spite of emanating this being everywhere, imagine like, you ever seen like a balloon deflate? So imagine, all the air is getting expelled from a balloon. What happens to the balloon when that happens? It shrinks. Except with the one, with being, as this being is flowing out, it goes through no depreciation or diminution. It's sending out being, but nothing, somehow it's like subtracting something from infinity. What are you left with? Infinity. It's still there. So it's just shooting out, oozing all this ousia, this being everywhere without itself diminishing. Kind of like how, I like the image of like a waterfall or a fountain where it's not depreciating, but it's also like light in a room. It's emanating. In fact, all this stuff coming out is called emanation. A little candle can light up a whole room. The light spreads out. So it's shooting out all this being onto these other levels that trickle down into where we are. Trickle down being. What aspects are trickling down? Well, you see there are two other circles there I haven't labeled. What are there? Well, the first big emanation, mind, nous. So we've seen this before, haven't we? And then after that is whole soul. Sometimes just psyche. soul. So what does that mean for us? Well, what are you? Now, I said for Plato, you are a soul that remembers that you contemplated the forms. You were floating around out there. Justice itself. Goodness itself. Piety. Here's something Euthyphro forgot. You were up there floating around, and then somehow you got imprisoned here. Well, yeah, that, except it's a more complicated story of how you got here. You, every single one of you, everything that is, where does your isness come from? The one itself, being. If there's anything out there that is, it's got a little bit of this. On its way falling downward, what do we bump into? And here we are. Yeah, I'm being. The first, if you will, I think this is like a triple-decker pool. Okay, so imagine like if there's some sort of heavy substance, like oil falling down through one pool, falling down through another, and finally getting down here. That's the way I like to think of it. Sort of. It works that way, it doesn't work another way. And so the being comes out, its first destination is mind. This is really where the forms are. That's the same thing as Plato's world of forms. They're the forms. And so this is where a little bit of being, we got a little bit of soul, we got a little bit of mind. Now, do you have a mind? You do. But it's actually part of a bigger mind. But this is why we all have access to the same knowledge. We're all sharing in one big mind. We're all tapping into the same, if you will, field of intellect. We all tap into the same thing. But then, next layer, the world soul. What is world soul, Suke? It is just this realm of soul. Do you have a soul? You do. What is it? Well, it's the non-physical part of me. Yep, it is. It's actually part of a greater whole. Your soul is actually part of the cosmic soul of the universe. So that's why we're all interconnected in that. This is not Plato, this is Plotinus. Like I said, you would say, this is what Plato said, and it's not, but that's what he thinks he's doing. So we're all part of the same soul. You and I, we actually share the same soul. We're just like little different attributes of it. Finally, again, when people engage in sexual activity, and somehow that sucks something down here, and you get incorporated, that works. Incorporated, embodied. So now you're in a body. But what are you? Yeah, you're enfleshed. You got your flesh. But you are actually being and soul and mind. That's actually part of the greater whole. And what happens when you die for Plato? Oh, whoop. The soul goes back to the form. That's a little bit more complicated. When you die, your mind goes back here, your soul goes back here, and your being goes back here. You get recycled again. And the individuality is lost. So this is very unlike, say, a Jewish, Christian, or Islamic conception of the afterlife, where what happens when you die, you, as a singular entity, go back with your own identity. I am living later. When you die, it's like a drop back in these three different buckets. Okay, so if you take a drop of water and put it in the ocean, can you find that drop? You can get another drop, sure. But can you get the same drop back out again? It's not happening. So when you die, any individuality is annihilated. It goes back to where it belongs, but the individuality is a feature of physicality. Ideals, these non-physical things, are so perfect because they're not individuated. If it's just the perfect horse, or the perfect human being, or the perfect what have you, what makes them so perfect, they're complete. That's what that word perfect means. They're so complete, lacking nothing, because they're non-physical. You only get multiples of things in physicality. The physical world is the only place where you can have more than one thing or something. Each chair is an echo of chairness. Each person is an echo of the perfect person. So even reality is fundamentally one. And that's where reality is. So here's the framework, and therefore one of the central Neoplatonic doctrines is this notion of creatio ex deo, as opposed to, let me explain this, creatio ex nihilo. So there's a sense in Neoplatonic philosophy, which is what this is. This is called Neoplatonism. This one is sometimes identified. They'll use the Greeks will use the Greek theos. The Romans will use the Latin word deus, God. That's God, one. It's God in some singular nebulous sense. And it's not the exact same thing as the God of Aristotle. The God of Aristotle is on the outside. He's making things go. This God is just being itself. That's the arche right there for Plotinus. That's the fundamental feature of all of reality, is this oneness. Literally, the universe is creatio ex deo, means we're all made out of God. The universe is made out of God, if you will. Excess divinity, just shooting out. It's not the same thing, but it kind of reminds me of what people say today when they'll be like, did you know you're made out, and this is a physicalist answer, but did you know you're made out of stardust? It makes you special. Yeah, but so is everything else then. That's not special at all. Okay? What I flushed down the toilet is also made out of stardust. Okay, by the same reason. But it's kind of like, isn't that special? Everything's interconnected? Yeah, it's not, except here it's the God stuff. As opposed to what the Jews, Christians, and Muslims are going to say, at least in their Orthodox, that's a little overrides. Creatio ex nihilo. God made the world in 6 days out of what stuff? Christians, Jews, and Muslims really want to say this, and it's not really a stuff, but they'll say, God made the universe out of what? Nothing. Now, it's not like, that's not to say that God went to Home Depot and was like, I'll take 2 pallets of nothing. Okay, and then, there's these nothing blocks, and the universe is made out of, literally nothing. That's not, but what this means, creatio ex nihilo, is God needed no pre-existent stuff. It's not like if you build a doghouse, you might, I need to go get some wood and then put it together. That's not creating out of nothing. That's fashioning. That's not really creating. That's fashioning. You're taking pre-existing materials and working them in a new way. The Christian, Jewish, and Islamic notion of creation is, I made the thing, all of it. I didn't need to go buy the stuff first. I made the stuff. And that's what's different. That's why it uses the word in Hebrew. Bereshit bara Elohim. Bara. Created out of nothing, not fashioned. Like you making a shirt out of cloth. God didn't go to Joann's to make the universe. Made it out of nothing. So that's kind of the Orthodox, again, little o, Christian, Islamic, Jewish view. God made it, poof, there it was. As opposed to creatio ex deo, literally the universe is made out of God itself. Now, if this seems like, this is so abstract, why, who cares? When we're talking about, I said this before, this comes into play when we're talking about human races too. People use this schema. This is not what Plotinus was saying at all, but people have used this to say, well, obviously, blacks are here, are lower on the list, and the whites are at the top. Okay, well, just look at 19th century Victorian philosophy and politics. Herbert Spencer comes to mind. He's the originator of the phrase, you've heard it before, the survival of the fittest. It's not Darwin. It's Spencer. And Spencer was talking about with regard to people. We, the Europeans, were better than everybody else. Why? Because we have technology and stuff. Why? Because we just happen to show up at every continent at the exact right time. That's how this has been employed before, by saying there's hierarchies of being. Some things are more important. Some things are better than others. Okay, races, peoples, creeds, beliefs. That's how this has been used. That's not what he's saying. That's how it's been used. But we do the same thing with other kinds of things. Okay, this thing has more being than others. This animal is better than others. That's how we would determine also who has notions of rights and privilege. Should we have protections for animals? And if we do, why dogs and not cockroaches? Well, from this, they've got more being. Whatever it is, however we legally want to talk about it, yeah, they've got more being. They've got more, je ne sais quoi, all right? They've got more something. But I can't really describe it. Just to wrap that up there on that notion, ex deo versus ex nihilo, we're made out of God. And something different is the conclusion or corollary of this. We're not the same thing as God. We're separate. We're still God made on this view. But Neoplatonism is this. We're literally made out of the same substance, the same stuff as God itself, himself, herself, whatever you want. And therefore, on this view, evil, anything that is bad, comes from physicality. or enfleshment, if you will. Socrates said that in the Phaedo. Where do wars come from? People want stuff. And it's your body that wants things. If you didn't have your body, you wouldn't have the desires. For Plotinus. So the body is naughty. And again, it's the same rigmarole. He gets hungry, he gets thirsty, he gets horny, and we get uncomfortable, and we have these desires, which we feel compulsed, under compulsion. Like, I have strong, and we might even consciously be thinking, I wish I didn't have this desire right now. I don't know about you, that's the first 4 hours of my morning where I wish I weren't so tired. And what's making me, my body is what's tired. My mind's ready to go. My brain maybe not, but my mind is. But I loathe the fact that I'm tired. That's the body getting in the way. This stupid enfleshment. My arthritis is killing me today. I can't make it. I can barely make a fist. All right? It hurts. Stupid body. There it is. Getting in the way. Constantly. Yeah, because it's evil. But also, all bad things that exist happen because of enfleshment. So even disasters. Where's the hurricane happening? Not in the world of forms. The tornado. All that stuff that's happening in the physical world. Death is only a thing in the physical world. Anything bad that could possibly happen happens here. Your soul goes on. Your soul's going to go back and rejoin everything when you die. Yay! You might think, no, I want to stay around for a while. What do you want to stay around and do? Something physical, I guess. If you want to linger here, I want to party until I'm 3 billion years old. That's your body talking. If you're like, no, I don't want to go. What are you holding on to? Something physical in this world that you're grasping at. And usually then, the fear of death then is actually fear of getting non-physical. So I think this is a good primer on Neoplatonism. Just saying it's Platonism plus. But this is also a view that is really popular in the Roman Empire, really popular in the Eastern Empire, and like I said, Christians, Muslims, and Jews are going to look at this and go, there's something to this. Neoplatonism is going to stick around. That's why I'm supposed to spend some time on it, because it's going to stick around in those traditions, and it's going to get conflated as a package with Aristotle. So Aristotle's notion of God and Plotinus' notion of the one counter thought of as one thing. There's that thought-thinking thought, and it's also being itself. Especially in the Islamic tradition. We'll see that when we get there, because we're going to do a little excursus here. We're going to begin our excursus shortly. Yes. Sorry. Don't ever apologize in here, unless you actually cause me physical harm.
I'll try not to do that. But,
thank you.
But okay, so what are they like? Specifically, I guess of Plotinus. I know that the one isn't supposed to be physical, but in a physical sense, what do they think it is? The universe, or is it outside of the universe? Is it?
It is
matter?
above. No, it's definitely not matter, because matter is on the opposite side of the scale.
Right?
What's that?
Matter is evil.
Yeah, matter is naughty.
Yeah.
Okay, it's because
matter is like us.
Well, yeah, but what we are is we are these bits of being, soul, and mind.
We're just stuck in the matter.
Yeah, in some material packaging.
Right.
So you think of the packaging as inconsequential. I mean, when you open up something, unless it's like a box to a phone. Okay, right, we keep those for some reason, I don't know why. But just in case I need it, all right? I don't know if you do that with other things. Sometimes, I know in my own shed, I have a bunch. Now I keep a lot of cardboard for when I have a light a fire outside or something. But you just keep anybody else just keep boxes. Okay, it's weird that we do it, but the packaging is inconsequential. You ever ripped open a present? Get in there, get in. Your body is actually the wrapping paper of you. I don't mean waiting to get ripped open by some nefarious child, but in the sense that it's just what it's packaged in. It's really inconsequential. Especially if it's that hard plastic where you got to get a razor blade to cut into, for an SD card or something. Oh, that stuff is gone. That stuff's not sticking around. That's what your body is. And so that's why it gets in the reality is something more fundamental. What's on the inside that counts, not the packaging, which can be wasted. Your body is something. That's why what do we do with the body? We burn them. We throw them away. When people are dead, what do? Bury it. The burial is something that's particularly religious, because in the burial, the notion that, and this is why Christians, Jews, and Muslims do burials typically, traditionally, because in those three religions, there's the notion of a resurrection. You're going to get your body back, and it's going to be awesome. It's not gonna be. It's gonna be perfected somehow. It's gonna be body plus. Because like in Christianity, what did Jesus do? He came back. Hey, I'm back. My body is back. And the text stresses the physicality of Jesus. The first time the disciples see him, he's eating fish. That's not something a ghost does. Okay, even though maybe there's still holes in his hands. But there's this notion of resurrection that you get your body back. Because in those religions, there can be a tension that the body is bad, like it has desires. But there's also who created matter? God did, so it's good. And God made things and then said it was good, right? In Genesis. That burial is this notion of you put the body in the ground because it's going to make a comeback. Whereas typically outside of the Abrahamic realm, what do they do with bodies? Cremate. Okay, it's done. Throw it out, burn it. Don't let it take up space.
Well, like in Christian beliefs, wasn't like Lucifer also like an angel at one point? So technically, didn't God make him as well?
Well, I'll say this. Traditionally, Christians will say, yeah, Satan is part of creation, although I've said this before, there is no biblical connection between the serpent, Satan, and Lucifer. At all. Lucifer is mentioned once in the book of Job. Satan's mentioned a couple of times as the deceiver. But I'll just say, the main point I want to stress there is, yes, Satan is a creation. Which is why, and we'll get there when we talk more about the Eastern stuff here too, this idea of like God and Satan is like two, in this corner, God, and in this corner, Satan. That's not Christianity, Islam, or Judaism. That's Manichaeism, which is a religion that there's an all good God and there's an all bad God and they're at war forever, and neither side will ever win.
It's like how inside of you, you have a good wolf and a bad wolf.
Yeah, it's the same. That's the same thing. Like kind of like moral dualism that there's an ultimate. And so for some reason too, people will use the symbol of the taijitu to represent that. Yeah, yin and yang are the concepts in it. This diagram is called a taijitu. But yeah, you can call it yin and yang, that's fine. This thing, right? It ain't that. But I'm like, there's all good. So what this means is there's all goodness and all badness inside of you. No, it doesn't. That's something, this is a symbol in Taoism, which we're going to talk a little bit about, I think. And it doesn't mean that. This diagram actually means that all of the universe is one totality. It's not that you have all goodness. It's not some Jedi nonsense. You know, you were part of the light side or the dark side. None of that. Okay? But the idea that there's these poles. By pole, I don't mean people in Poland, but like an all good and an all bad. That's Manichaeism. Now sometimes there are Christian-esque, Islamesque, Jewish-esque versions of that end up being popularized, that kind of ebb up to the top. So in some versions of premillennial eschatology in Christianity, you get these Manichaean flavors. Well, if we let this happen, then Satan's going to win. Okay, and then we'll have to just wait for the rapture or something to happen to fix all. That's Manichaeanism, not Christianity. But sometimes I have that kind of fearfulness. Because all those religions have the view, God's like, we're good. Like, it's already done. Like, it's already accomplished. Like, we're good. Like, it's already, the battle's already won. It's finished. And even Islam, the sixth pillar, not a pillar of Iman. God already, like, the day of reckoning has already happened. It's just a matter of, really, it's just a matter of the credits of life rolling out, so to speak.
But didn't God, like in the Bible, really, like, flood the earth, like
Genesis
twice?
6. Once. And then said, I'll never do it again. And makes a covenant with Noah saying, listen, I promise not to do that again. But you all were really stupid.
So that, like, him, like, just being like, oop, I messed up, so we're just gonna...
According to the text, Hashem says, I'm sorry I had ever made them. I'm going to flood everybody. But at the same time, he picks one guy and his family and has them build a boat. So you're going to be fine. But yeah, God gets angry. All right, the God of Abraham, whichever version you want. And that story shows up a couple of times in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. But in any case there, it's still the idea that creation, we see at the beginning there, and there might be different authors of different parts of the books. Of the religious text, we still see this notion of God made creation, it was good. Now sin screws it up.
But like, isn't like...
But it's going to get fixed again, all right? Everything's going to be realigned.
Because, okay, so like in Christian belief, right, so everybody's like trying to be like this perfect thing, trying to get to the level that God is at, even though they know they'll never reach it. Like,
well, that describes Methodism.
Good, and like, But like, wouldn't being evil be closer to like being God? Because like God, like Jesus comes in, he like flips tables and stuff. He gets mad. Like,
Oh, he gets mad, but that's very godlike. God's constantly angry.
right.
As I tell my
But
comparative
we
religion
associate
students.
that like morally with like evil. You know
Do
what I
we?
mean? Or like being like bad, like yelling at people, or like just like being angry. In general, we associate that with like if somebody was fully perfect, then they wouldn't get angry.
That's not Christian teaching. That's Stoicism. Right there, right? That's actually Stoic. But this is actually, you bring up a good point here, because what we have, like this stuff, we've got these things are still around. Okay, now I don't mean like it's hard to find a Stoic in a toga today. But in terms of traditions, these all things are still flowing into our culture right now. And so what you just described is not like getting angry. We do describe it. That's kind of a bad thing, right? That might be a sin. So right there, that's not Christianity.
Right.
That's Stoicism. But we've kind of put it together. We have those associated. Like if someone's really emotive, we think that's kind of irresponsible. And so someone of virtue would control their emotions, right? You're a Stoic and you don't even know it. No, I don't mean like a formal Stoic. Like I'd like to go to Stoic school, please. But it's still there in our like those. Even the virtues still stick around. Sometimes we become cynics. Now I don't mean cynic in the modern colloquial sense, like whatever. But sometimes, I remember I said one of the virtues of Stoicism is an ideate. Have you ever done something to your parents just to make them mad? Some of you are nodding more vigorously than others, but every single one of you nodded. In that moment, they're kind of like, yeah, let's just do it just to make them mad. What are you going to do, Mom? What are you going to do? You're going to cry a little? You're going to squirt some? You just performed shamelessness. And you got a little sense of pride about it too, didn't you? Like, I'm going to be in trouble. I might even get grounded. Do something. That's shamelessness. That's what the cynics would do. And then you're like, and that's what's wrong with this household, Mom. All right, that's what you're protesting against your own little society. So sometimes, I'm not saying, and not that all we need to flip, we can all be one at once. Sometimes we are cynics. Sometimes we're Stoics. You might be an atheist. Sometimes you've had Christian beliefs. I don't mean necessarily we believe in one world. I'm not saying you affirm that, but sometimes you've had Christian notions of morality. In this culture, I guarantee you definitely have. Sometimes you've had Christian notions of soul. What happens? Like, oh, there's a person that's you on the inside. That's good. Well, that's really, and really, even the Christian notion, there's really more of a Platonic one. All of it. No, I'm not saying all of it. And so yeah, we have all these different intellectual traditions that are all. It's almost like what Western thought is all these, and the ones I haven't mentioned yet, put into a blender, hit frappe, pour it out. Western thinking. All these things mixed together. Some of them are, and some of them don't even make sense. Put together.
Right.
But there it is.
To Episcopalian private school, I know.
Yes, exactly. And of course you did, because the Anglican tradition, more than any others, totally embraces we have different traditions. Do they all make sense? No. And we're okay with that, which is skepticism. Is everything going to make sense? No, and we're okay with that. That is modern, contemporary, like 21st century Anglicanism to a T. 39 articles? Maybe. Right? That's, what is it, the Book of Common Prayer today. Like, sure, whatever. Read your lectionary if you want to. But yeah, and that's just it. Like already, even here, 2,000 years ago, all these are in the air. So if you went to like a marketplace somewhere in Anatolia, you can hear somebody talk about, be a Neoplatonist. Join the skeptics, join the Stoics, everywhere. So all these things are up in the air. And then, over the next couple of centuries too, what's going to happen is there are going to be three new flavors added to this environment in the West. Well, really, one in the West as such, which is a term I love anyway. Christianity is going to be the main flavor that plays out with these in Europe and its successors. Okay, so what you're getting in Western culture is this plus Christianity and whatever mixtures you have. You get different mixtures. Just like different molecules can make different substances even if they consist of the same molecules. For example, what's water made out of? There you go. What's peroxide made out of?
H2O2.
Yeah, all right. So notice they're both made of oxygen and hydrogen. So both water and peroxide are made of the same stuff. If you're thirsty, don't drink peroxide. It's literally made out of the exact same atoms, but in a different alignment. right? Same atoms, different alignment. By that I mean, like, so what's going to happen is some Christianity is going to mix with a little bit of Aristotelianism and be this thing, cynicism, and all these different things are going to mix in different ways and become different things. A little bit further east, in the Islamic world, all this stuff is going to happen a little bit east of the Jordan River. And then later, farther west. So, again, you don't think of Islam in the Islamic world, and that's why talking about the West is a really weird concept. Because when I talk about Islam, is Islam part of the West? No, the West has the Greek legacy. Well, Islam does too. Islam takes this Greek stuff and runs with it, just like the Christians do. And then the Islamic world spreads. For example, outside of, I don't people think of Islam, they think of what? Saudi Arabia. Okay, Middle East. What country in the world has the largest Muslim population? Indonesia, which is not in the Middle East. And then later, there's a dominant Islamic power, which is very important, the Ottoman Empire, which goes into parts of the Balkans, which is in Europe. The Islamic world is going to go there. Many times the Turks make their way to Vienna. Please let us sack your city. They take Constantinople, but they never take Vienna. That just so happens. And then there's parts of Spain. Spain has been an Islamic country domain longer than it's been a Christian one. Okay, from like the 7th, 8th century till 1492. Some other things happened that year. And the Reconquista ends in 1492. It's been a little over 500 years. That's in Europe. Western Europe. So, we're going to look at, next time what we're going to transition into is some Eastern things. I'm going to keep going further and further east, in a little tour there. And then we'll come back to Western philosophy a little bit later.